Hello there, and welcome back to the Disconnected. It is July, and July is synonymous with the Criterion 50% off sale at Barnes & Noble, which started late last week, and Amazon is also price matching, so I figure it is the perfect time for me to give my favorite 10 Criterion picks and see if there might be something in that stack that you like. So stick around. So the Criterion Collection, they have more than 1,100 films in their catalog at this point, and they continue to grow literally month by month. They have released everything from Armageddon and Chasing Amy to Citizen Kane and the most art house of art house films for a lot of different tastes. And I'm going to share 10 that I think are probably the most near and dear to my heart from the collection. Now, I have a reputation for not loving the Criterion Collection, and that's true. I think that they are good, but I think that they've lost a little bit of their luster for me. They used to be the highest quality possible, and they started to level off and even falter a little bit for a few years. I think 2022 is a huge step up for them, and I'm genuinely looking forward to a lot of their upcoming releases that have already been announced. But most of these are older titles that came out a long time ago that have been in the collection for years at this point. Now, these are not what I would say are the 10 best films. These are not what I would say are the 10 best releases. They are just 10 of the single film releases that I would recommend as a look into the things that I love about movies. So, one by one, in spine order, let's dive into those. So, the first release that I'm going to talk about is probably one of the best documentaries of all time, and that is Hoop Dreams. Hoop Dreams is about two inner city Chicago kids that are trying to play basketball professionally. And this is just a beautiful journey to take alongside them. It is not something that you get to see carried on over years and just displaying this level of life and portraying class against class to see how that affects people. It is incredible. And this is a really great examination of the way that people are affected by that. This is a longer film. It's about almost 3 hours, but very well worth it. And some decent special features on here. There's even a new documentary that catches up with the kids years later to see how everything went and how they're doing now. So this is one, if you don't have it, highly recommend it. Hoop Dreams is fantastic. Next up is one that pretty much everybody has seen, I'm sure, but I can't talk about my favorite Criterion releases without mentioning Dazed and Confused. First off, I love when they do a release like this. The art is just genuinely fun and exciting to look at. It's Richard Linklater, one of the best directors of all time, and when everything comes together in like a perfect package like this, I can't help but recommend it. There is a lot of interviews, there's a commentary, there's a documentary. It is just that type of film that everybody has to see, and it led to one of my favorite memories from my childhood, and that was at the end of every year. I would get picked up from school on the final day of school, and my family would blast Schools Out for the Summer, and I didn't really understand it until I saw this film. And you know, this film that's set in the 70s is so nostalgic for me, who was never alive in the 70s. So it is one that I think is magical. This is like a time machine. You can teleport perfectly back to the 1970s and just get a glimpse inside this fiction life. My third pick is potentially one of what I think is the actual best films in the entire collection, and that is 1955's Night of the Hunter. This is one that is directed by Charles Laughton, and it is directed beautifully. It is his only feature-length directed film, and I don't understand why, because it is so well done. This movie is one of my most wanted 4K titles because it is already beautiful, but I can't imagine seeing this in a newly restored 4K UHD, beautiful black and white, because some of those classic films in 4K that are in black and white are some of the most beautiful ones to look at because of those deep blacks that you can get out of something like an OLED TV on a proper system. And this one is magical to watch. It is a very close to like a religious horror movie, and it is terrifying in certain scenes. It is so well done. The underwater scene is beautiful. The storyline is captivating. It is a breeze to watch. It's less than like 90 minutes, I think. And the kids in this movie, they can act their ass off. This is just an incredible film. My number 4 pick is one of my favorites. It was released in the year of my birth, and I think has some of the best dialogue in the entire Criterion Collection, and that is Broadcast News. This one does not get talked about enough, but it is a star-making performance from Holly Hunter, and you've got Albert Brooks, William Hurt, and is just a beautiful film about Washington media, and it's something that is captivating to watch. It feels so natural to see these people interact the way that they do, and not something that you feel while watching every movie. There's something just special about the way they talk, and it feels real. It feels absolutely genuine. And if you've never seen Broadcast News, out of all of the ones on here, if you're wanting to get a glimpse of another culture or society, this might be the most engaging one. So I would suggest checking out Broadcast News. My number 5. So obviously, David Cronenberg has been in the mouth of a lot of moviegoers recently with his new release of Crimes of the Future, but one that we just talked about in the Discord for my Patreon about a week ago that I think not enough people are giving attention to nowadays is his film that he made while going through a divorce, and that is The Brood. The Brood is really interesting to try to explain. It's harrowing. It's very well made. It is one that I would suggest watching when you are in a safe space mentally, basically. This is one that will lead you to think a lot of things and feel funny, especially if you are a married individual. There's so much going on in this movie that can just knock you off kilter for a little while. The Brood, so well done, one of his best, and one that I think is the most underrated in his filmography. Next for me, I talk about the Coen brothers all the time, and I talk about this film all the time because I think it is a stupendous effort from them to start off their careers, and that is Blood Simple. This movie is astonishingly well directed. It is acted marvelously. You've got Frances McDormand and M. Emmett Walsh, and they take this film and run with it. And man, the third act in this movie is just a ridiculous climax that makes you cringe while watching it because of the way that they film it. It feels like it could be happening to you, and it is an astonishingly tense final act. One that if you've never seen, suggest that you go in blind. This is a great movie. This is a movie that you can see the birth of their filming sensibilities. This got, pieces that you'll find later in No Country for Old Men or Inside Llewyn Davis, or even like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? There's so much in this movie that you can find their current sensibilities in that I just really suggest, if you've never given a good deep dive into the Coen brothers or even paid attention to this release because it's a little older, Blood Simple from them is great. All right, one of the most tense films on this list is probably Michael Haneke's Funny Games. So he actually did a US remake of his own film directed by himself, which is basically a shot-for-shot remake a little while later. And I love both of them, but this is a great film. If you've never seen it, you really got to see it to believe it. It breaks the fourth wall multiple times. It is gross. It is one that can leave you with this lasting dread because there's always something that can go wrong for you. And even when you think you might be getting away, he comes in and rewinds time a little bit and makes you suffer just a little bit further. So Funny Games, I do suggest you pick it up. The odd thing here is I would only suggest you pick up the Criterion if it's the only one that you can get. There is a foreign Blu-ray that does have a little higher quality on the movie itself. The extra features are actually better on this release, so if you are somebody that loves those special features, get the Criterion. But if you're mainly after the feature film, I do suggest you look into it. I think it's a French release that they have it on Blu-ray, and it's got a little less compression. But Funny Games, great movie, and even the remake. Check them both out. My number 8 recommendation here is one that I'm going to use a word I normally don't use, and that is I feel genuinely blessed to have been able to see this in the New Bev Theater in Hollywood just last month. And it was part of a double feature, but it was a double feature of John Waters films, and that is what I think is probably his best film, and that is Polyester. This movie is ridiculous. There's foot stompers, there's sadistic nuns, there is divine with this ridiculously great sense of smell, and all that leads to the main gimmick of this movie, and that is the odorama. This release comes with an odorama card, and you can smell everything along with divine. Got to do that at the New Bev, and it was just astonishing. This movie is great. It shows you everything about uh, this really unique director from Baltimore that not a lot of people have given the time of day to, because he still doesn't have this massive appeal to a lot of people, because his movies are generally looked down on as basically weird. And Polyester is great. It is odd compared to some other, mainstream type flicks, but it is something that you can find a lot in to enjoy, and it's such a unique experience, especially with that odorama. So this Criterion release is the best way to see it, and is an astonishing release. Okay, my number 9, we are getting into the much more recent films that were released from Criterion, and this one is from 1957, another black and white film that I think not a lot of people have watched, and that is just downright depressing, because it has some of the best set pieces you will ever find, and that is The Incredible Shrinking Man. So this release is, to borrow a word from the front cover, it is incredible. This is one that should absolutely be on everybody's list of, you have to own this movie, primarily to see what they were able to accomplish in 1957, because they pull off things in this movie that should not really look as good as it does in 1957, and it is beautiful to see. It is one that really connects with the audience in the way that they're trying to make you feel like you can immerse yourself in this environment. And immerse yourself, you can, because again, the set pieces in this are great. It has a little fold-out booklet on the inside that you can dive deeper into the film, and it's got some decent special features. The Incredible Shrinking Man should only be $20 on sale right now. This is another one that has a 4K digital restoration, and I would love for them to put this out on UHD, but I think if they were going to, they probably would have when they released this. Although I don't think that they had released any 4Ks at that point. They probably would have held it a little longer and then released it on 4K. So I don't see that that's on the plans in the immediate future. Not to mention, I don't know that this is a hugely popular title for them, although it absolutely should be. Pick up The Incredible Shrinking Man. Speaking of 4K UHD, one of their recent releases that was sort of a flagship title for when they started announcing 4K discs that I really think you should look at is Menace to Society. So this movie is a dark, violent, troubling movie set in Southern California, in Watts specifically, in the early 90s. And as somebody that grew up in Southern California as a kid, it was important. It was, really important to see things like this, and Juice, and Boys from the Hood. And they are really able to capture a culture that certain people will never be able to witness in their life. And as somebody that, I've gone on trips to Southern California where I was told you are not allowed to step out wearing red or blue, or, doing things in downtown LA to help people, and have people come up and try to ask me for drugs. This is the type of movie that is important, and that I think a lot of people need to see. And the one big thing about this is it was one of their first 4K titles, and the colors truly pop on this release. It looks great in 4K. Another good physical release, the way that this slides out on the side. I like the design they went with it, the red in the background there. It looks great, has a lot of great special features. I think there are multiple archival commentaries, and then there are scene-by-scene commentaries that are recently recorded, but overall, just a winner of a package from Criterion. All right, that is everything for me for today's video. That is 10 solid recommendations from the Criterion Collection. All are still in print as far as I'm aware. Highly suggest you look into those. And if you have other ideas, let me know down in the comments below, because I'm always looking for recommendations as well. If you are a part of my Patreon and you're in the Discord checking out some of my pickups videos, you'll see frequently I get things that my patrons recommend to me, and I will check them out and share how right they were. I am more than happy to discover something and give the props to the person that recommended it. So yes, keep those coming. Give me a recommendation in the comments below. I will always be checking those out. And in the meantime, like I always say, from one collector to all of you, have a good night. And it's Richard Linklater, one of the best directors of all time. easily. And when everything comes together in such a perfect